welcome to another episode of Deck Musings. So this week we have moved forward again. We've been back, we've been forward, we've been back, forward. And we're back into Necro Summer. And I thought what it would be interesting to do is talk about a deck that wasn't a Necro deck and actually managed to win Worlds. And that deck is going to be this one, the 1996 World Championship deck. Now, it says here it's famous for two reasons. First, because the deck was used to win a World Championship, and second, so you've got a deck here that's in the height of, that period referred to as Necro Summer. Not only that, it's playing with a handicap, and the creator of the deck forgot to register the 4 Adakar wastes, which we've spoken about in numerous episodes. Not this particular deck, but just we've seen quite a few decks which have this particular sort of cycle of lands in it. Forgot to register it in the deck list, and so he was forced by judges to play with regular planes instead. Thus, there's a Sleight of Mind in here. There's one copy in the main deck and one in the sideboard, and as a consequence they are completely useless because there is no blue mana in the deck as a consequence of forgetting to put in Adakar wastes. But the deck still won, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm going to include the links as always in the description. What I'm hoping is after this episode and from next week onwards, we will be actually going forward, and the idea, the plan, of course plans often go awry, is each week to through doing a set musings, place ourselves back at the point at which a new set had rotated in. So next week we should be, the plan is somewhere here. Well, actually it could be, saying that, it could be here or here. Basically you can see here Mirage is just rotated in. So, and then the idea is the following week we'll be moving into the period where Visions had rotated in, and then looking at tournament decks from that period, and then so on. So that will. The reason why I've been going backwards and forwards is I've been trying to sync everything up, and that was probably a mistake in trying to sync up my deck musings with my Commander Fodder episode with the cards that I have in my binders. And what was happening is, because I think what messed things up is I opted to do that, looking back through early Magic as a whole by using my Dollarama repacks, the old stuff, and that's what messed everything up. But it was pretty interesting to see that in overview, and now finally I've recovered, and again there was a bit of wobble after that because I'd forgotten about some cards I had in my binder, and now we should be sailing forward relatively easily without going back too much. Again, that's the plan. So let us look at the deck. It's a white Weenie deck that is splashing blue but can't play blue. Some of these cards we have seen in previous episodes, and you know, as we go through them, you might find with those cards I skip over them slightly because I realise that I've already spoken about them previously, and there may not be anything necessarily new to add to the discussion, because yeah, I've sort of exhausted the possibilities, but I'm going to try. So if we switch to grid view, this I find makes it easier. So 2 artifacts in the deck, one copy of each. Lodestone Bauble, 0 to cast, 1 tap it, sacrifice it to put up to 4 target basic lands from any player's graveyard on top of his or her library in any order. That player draws a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Very interesting way of messing with an opponent. We've got 1 copy of Zuran Orb. We've seen this numerous times. It was a really popular card from Ice Age, although it's, I believe, if we have a look, been in your, was it printings before that? Maybe that was the first time it appeared. Yeah, no, it was actually the first time it appeared as Ice Age. And yeah, not been seemingly reprinted a ton after that. But as you can see, we've been going through like Ice Age was in so many periods while they were sort of trying to sort out standard, I suppose. And of course, because we've been jumping, or I've been jumping backwards and forwards a little bit. Okay, so 20 creatures, white Weenie deck. So most of these are fairly low mana cost. So we've got a 1 for 2/1 in the form of Savannah Lions. That's all I have to say about it. 2/1 for 2 white, protection from black, 2 white, 1+1/+0 until end of turn, and a single white first strike until end of turn. That's Order of Leitbur. 4 of those, 4 Orders of the White Shield, double white, protection from black, first strike until end of turn, double white, +1/+0 until end of turn. So yeah, I think you notice there's a similarity here. This one was from Fallen Empires. This card was from Ice Age. And then we have White Knight, 2/2 for 2, protection for black, first strike. We also have Phyrexian War Beast, which there's 2 of these. It's 3 to cast for a 3/4. If it leaves play, you have to sacrifice a land, and Phyrexian War Beast deals 1 damage to you. So that's the downside for getting a 3/4 for 3. That's an artifact. And then we have Serra Angel, which is 3 and 2 white, has flying. Attacking does not cause Serra Angel to tap, which then went on to be keyworded as Vigilance. 3 and 2 white. Oh look, land tax yet again. Single white. During your upkeep, if an opponent controls more land than you may search your library and remove up to 3 basic land cards and put them into your hand. Reshuffle your library afterwards. That's 1 copy of that. And then we have some instants here, including the unplayable Sleight of Mind, well, unplayable in this deck. Reinforcements, single white, put up to 3 target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library in any order. Sleight of Mind. If it had have been playable in the deck, it's a single blue. Change the text of target creature or target permanent by replacing all occurrences of one colour word with another. For example, you may change counters black spell to counters blue spells. Sleight of Mind cannot change mana symbols. We looked at a couple of cards last week like this, including, I believe, Sleight of Mind. Yeah, so You can see where that would be handy. Swords to Plowshares, single white, remove target creature from the game. The creature's controller gains life equal to its power. 4 disenchants, 2 and a white, destroy target enchantment or artifact. Interesting, these are being main boarded here. Reprisal, 2 and a white, bury target creature with power 4 or greater. Interesting removal for big stuff. Got our lands here. We have a Kjeldoran Outpost. And where's that from? That's Alliance, isn't it? Yeah. So when it comes into play, sacrifice a plains or bury it. Or bury Kjeldoran Outpost. Tap, add white to your mana pool. 1 and a white, it can spit out a soldier creature token. And that's a 1/1. We also have Mishra's Factory in here. So this taps to add colourless mana. But for 1, it can become an assembly worker, which is a 2/2 artifact creature until end of turn. Still counts the land, but so the assembly worker still counts the land, but cannot be tapped for mana the turn it comes into play. And tap target assembly worker gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So of course for this to work, you need multiple copies of this, of which we do have here. There's 4 of these. 15 planes in the set, and then 4 strip mines. So add 1 colourless mana to your mana pool. Sacrifice strip mine to destroy target land. 2 sorceries, 1 each of balance and 1 each of Armageddon. Armageddon, 3 and a white, destroys all lands. Balance, each player sacrifices enough lands to equalise the number of lands all players control. The player who controls the fewest lands cannot sacrifice any in this way. All players then equalise cards in hand and then creatures in play in the same way. So you can see in this deck there are some control elements, there's mass removal. Oh, there's another copy of Kjeldoran Outpost. We also have a copy of Black Vise in the deck, which we were looking at last week. So a single mana of any colour to cast. At the end of target's opponent's upkeep, Black Vise deals that player 1 damage for each card in his or her hand in excess of 4. Sleight of Mind we've already seen. There's a Spirit Link in here, which we've seen in the previous episode. Single white, gain 1 life for every 1 damage target creature deals. You may gain more life than the toughness or the total life of the creature or player damaged by the creature Spirit Link enchants. So, in today's environment, this would be an aura, have aura on it. Back then, it just said enchant creature. Define offering, 1 and a white, destroy target artifact, gain life equal to the artifact's casting cost. So yeah, you can see with combination in the deck and in the sideboard, there's 4 copies here. We've got quite a bit of artifact hate we're running here. We've got a copy of Energy Storm, 1 and a white, has cumulative upkeep on it, which was a thing in Ice Age. And the block generally, I think. Damage dealt by instants, interrupts and sorceries is reduced to 0. Creatures with flying do not untap during their controller's untap phase. And that's an enchantment. Reprisal, 1 and a white, bury target creature with power 4 or greater. Now, back here, so that's another copy of that. We've got Arenson's Aura, I think that is. 2 and a white, it's an enchantment. 1 single white, sacrifice enchantment to destroy target enchantment. Oh, and also here there's 3 and 2 blue, counter target enchantment, which of course we can't access because we are not playing any blue in our mana base. As I mentioned previously, we've got Exile, 2 and a white, remove target non-white attacking creature from the game, gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Okay, and then we've got 2 Serrated Arrows. For the cast, when it comes into play, you put 3 arrowheads on it. During upkeep, bury Serrated Arrows. If there are no arrowhead counters on it, tap, remove an arrowhead counter from Serrated Arrows. Put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. So yeah, -1/-1 counters. I don't do this very often, but you can see here we've got a white Weenie deck, low mana curve. Okay, so there's our planes. I'm using 4th edition here. In fact, you would have noticed quite a lot of these cards are from 4th edition. And there's going to be some instances where there's cards that are either in another set in standard, in which case, when the deck was put together originally, there could have been artwork from those. Also, I'm assuming this was the case at the time, but it's the case that you can use earlier copies of cards as long as the card itself is legal in the format you're playing in. So if there were some of the cards we've seen here from 4th edition, it's a core set, they're all reprints, so that's reprints of earlier sets. So someone could put together a deck with different artwork in it using the cards, as long as the cards themselves were legal in the format at the time. Okay, so this one. So I'm going to start off with the land base first, and then once I do that, I'll go through. Actually, for this one, I'm all over the shop. I think here. Let me just see. Yeah. Sometimes I go through it in alphabetical order, but not here. Bouncing around a bit. But we will start off with the main deck stuff and then move through to the sideboard, but I won't repeat anything that I've already spoken about in the main deck. Okay, let's go in here. Right. See this. Interesting cycle of land. Cycle or replacement land. Yeah, so this here, let me just bring this up. I'm not too worried here about the actual versions, I don't think. I just wanted to show everybody this. And we've seen these sort of cards before, actually, where it comes into play, and when it comes into play, you have to sacrifice a card. Now it appears, and maybe I will do this actually, because I want to just correctly name this as to what it is. Is first printing. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so all from the same set, but each one has a slightly different twist on it. So we got the full mana cycle here, but what's interesting is they all do something slightly different. So maybe I'll do this by colour. So yeah, this one spits out tokens. This one, there's a bit of library manipulation going on there. This one here, you get black mana from in a large quantity. The Belduvian trading post does damage to target attacking creature, and then this one's a pump spell. We've seen Heart of Yaramar before. Yeah, so interesting to see. That. But yeah, as you saw, they all do slightly different things. Land is a token generator as well, so let's have a look at that, because that's pretty interesting in Magic's history to see, you know, that happen where you have land. So this is not the case of something turning into a creature, as we're going to see with another card, one we've spoken about before, but this is something that's actually generating tokens. So we've got 37 instances in Magic's history where that's the case, where it's spitting out tokens and it's a land. And big gap there, actually. Big gap. And then it looks like it became a thing again. Hang on. Did I make a mistake there? Oh no. Because when did that get... Yeah. I'm also looking to see, was there any instance where they made like a full cycle here? Does that look like everything's there? Are we missing one? So yeah, we sort of got holes, haven't we, where for whatever reason there wasn't a full cycle. Yeah, I wonder why that was the case. Hopefully I've got it right. I'm not missing something here. I think this is the closest. What I'm actually going to do, I think, is let me just change this to all prints and then take out that, and that gives me a better idea if there's been any, you know, reprints in the meantime. But then they sort of slid in to that. Looks like, what commander product was this? C13. So I don't know if they had one of these in each of the decks. I can't remember, even though I have done C13 flip through. But there's 5 there. Probably not necessarily that's the case. So that's C18. There's a few of them as well been reprinted. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so definitely these are incomplete cycles there. Yeah, okay. That was interesting, actually. I never really thought about that before. Because the ones I more tend to think about is the ones where the land actually turns into a creature rather than generates a creature. Okay. Mishra's Factory. Oh, here's one that where it becomes a creature, but it can also pump other target assembly workers. And in the previous episode we looked through and just to get an idea of how common assembly workers generally were in Magic, and they're not very common. this ticks quite a few boxes. You know, said creature land's probably the most obvious one. Tribal assembly worker. If I go into there, there's the one we looked at I think last week. Virtual legendary is another term we've come across. So this is where the card represents a one-of-a-kind creature or object that and could conceivably have been legendary, usually cards in this category because they were printed before legendary existed, or have a mechanical need to not be legendary. And yep, there's quite a number of those. 110, according to the tagging anyway. Tribal assembly worker, which we looked at. And yeah, very much similar to Mutavault for part of it. I mean, tap to add one colourless mana to your mana pool. One Mutavault becomes a 2/2 creature with all creature types until end of turn. It's still a land. So, well, yeah, I didn't think of that actually. So, Mutavault, because it becomes all creature types, is also an assembly worker. Interesting. Good old strip mine. Yeah, again, another one we looked at before. Removal, land destruction. It's utility land. So it's better than Ghost Quarter. And it's better because, so for this you can sacrifice it to destroy a target land, and it also has one colourless mana to your mana pool. Whereas Ghost Quarter, you sacrifice it, destroys a target land. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle their library. Now what's interesting about this one, in terms of using it against your opponent, you know, it's worse than Strip Mine because they get a basic land out of it. So they, you know, if you're blowing, it depends on why you're blowing their land up, but if you're blowing their land up because, say, it was a dual land, well, and, you know, they're playing two colours, they're going to search for a land that, if, you know, if that dual land has is the only land with the other colour they're playing on it, then they'll just search up a basic land in that other colour. Obviously it reduces the flexibility that they have of having a dual land. But of course you can target yourself with Ghost Quarter in a pinch, so if you want to fix your mana pace, then yeah, you can use it on yourself. And we've got Wasteland. So this destroys target non-basic lands. So again, the reason why why Strip Mine is better than Wasteland is because Wasteland only destroys a target non-basic land, whereas Strip Mine can destroy any land. Then we've got Encroaching Wastes, and there's a cost incurred with this to destroy a target. Again, not only target non-basic land, but also it costs 4 to do that. And then we've got Tech Edge. So with Tectonic Edge, the cost of 1, you can destroy a target non-basic land, but you can also activate it only if an opponent controls 4 or more lands. And in other episodes I've been through all of these different things as well, so I won't go through that again. Okay, this, I don't know if I've spoken about this card before. Let's have a look. So Order of the Ebonham, which it's a mirror of. It's similar to Order of the White Shield, as we have seen, and Stillmoon Cavalier. Cavalier has this like hybrid mana thing going on, so it's a 2/1, it's slightly more expensive, has protection from both white and black. It can gain flying until end of turn, first strike, and +1/+0. So it's got, you know, an extra bit activated ability on it and an increased cost. So this falls in the category of a number of different things. Evasion, gains first strike, mana sink, has fire breathing on it, and 8 black. And we've seen fire breathing before. It's a popular thing on a number of different creatures. If we bring this up here and start to filter by colour, so I'm going to just do the monocolour cards for this. Okay, so if we go through Ruberg, and of course this is, you know, these 12 cards saying white could have been reprinted multiple times. Actually, I meant to say ID. So what I'm interested in, 8, I'm interested in cards that are totally one single colour in their colour identity that nonetheless have fire breathing, so they don't involve having access to red, which is what you normally associate with that with. So let's just see. Okay, 6 in blue, and again, of course, these could have been reprinted. Let's actually get on to red. 127, no surprise there. What do we see in... I missed one, didn't I? I missed black. There we go. Black 16. And we've already mentioned there that one, and we've seen that one before. And then green, just one from Ice Age. So yeah, Order of the White Shield is, yeah, the same card. And it mentions the same things as well. It mentions here creature type errata. So what was that errata to? They just named it. Okay. Oh, Human Knight. So yeah. So they were talking about the creature type errata, weren't they? Yeah, so they errated it to Human Knight, but they did also change some other things here as well. So, Phyrexian War Beast. This is an interesting card. This also had multiple artwork. So there's one other piece of art here. Again, it's been errated. Oh, to Phyrexian Beast. Okay. Leaves trigger. I'll have a look at that in a moment, actually. Drawback, yeah, well, we've seen drawbacks before. Leaves trigger self. Yeah, okay. Sacrifice outlet land. Sacrifice a land, yeah. Okay, so I think I'm going to take a look at... I don't know if we specifically looked at leave triggers before. So cards that trigger on something leaving the battlefield. There's a number of interesting groups of cards, and what I wanted to do, see if I can find them. Okay, so yeah, this goes back quite a bit. So these are all various things that trigger when it leaves play or leaves the battlefield, leaves play. and there's a whole range of different things that fall into that category. But where I find it interesting, and it would have been around the time of, I think, Evoke. So I may have to go forward quite a bit here. But at the same time, I'm just looking to see. You see that some of these, when enchant creature is put into a graveyard, return that creature card to its owner's hand. Okay, one thing I forgot to do is I really wanted to actually screen this, so I was just looking for creatures. Might have been a bit more helpful. And some Vanguard cards there as well. There's a lot of them in what was it? Champions, actually. And you can see other things it may return as a result of soul shift. So yeah, it's the sort of thing that you're going to see in sets where there were certain, graveyard related themes, I suppose. That either trigger when it leaves the battlefield or enters the graveyard. Some stuff here from Time Spiral. You got some stuff on legendary lands. So interesting, it is flagging up evoke cards. If you may play this spell for its evoke cost, if you do, it's sacrificed when it comes into play. But what I was thinking of is the other one where it actually does trigger when it leaves play. There's a whole load of stuff like all the persist stuff as well ties into that, doesn't it? And what was the later one as well that I'm trying to think of? Things like Unearth. So there's a number of abilities and keyworded abilities over time that have that have various enters the graveyard, leaves the battlefield abilities woven into them as well. Something leaving the battlefield, yeah. Remember all these sort of spell bombs as well. Some of these have like quite elaborate interactions. Some come back, but consequently have a high cost. There's just so many. Undying was the other one I was trying to think of. In relation to persist, but there was another one now, but I just don't remember what it was called. it was rather like Evoke, but the spell, if you chose to, choose the alternative cost, instead of it triggering when it entered the battlefield, it triggered when it exited the battlefield. But my mind's gone black. I just can't remember what it was called. Okay, Savannah Lions. Well, I think I know what this is going to be. We have Worse Than Usher of the Fallen, which is a single white for a 2/1 with Boast. One of the white, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. So Savannah Lions is worse than this, because with this you get this extra utility here. Expedition Envoy, single white 2/1. Then we have Eager Cadet. So it's better than Eager Cadet, which is a single white for 1/1. And then we have, of course, Elite Vanguard was the card I was trying to think of. So a single white for 2/1. So yeah, Savannah Lions became an Elite Vanguard, and I'm not sure if it's the case with Elite Vanguard. See, it's not been reprinted that many times. But how many times has Savannah Lions been reprinted? Quite a number. Pouncing. Try something. So if we say okay, type creature where its CMC is 1 and its power equals 2 and its toughness equals 1. So 60 cards that fall into that category, some of which might have additional things. We could do, does this work? I think it does. Yeah, it is vanilla. So it does mention all of these cards. So everywhere else it crops up, it looks like one way or another it has additional utility. And again, if we go through, this time I'm not going to restrict by, just being in a single colour. We'll do maybe that in paper. We will put it by release date, and we will do our other friend, his first printing. And then what I'll do is we'll just go through the colour pie again. So give us a rough idea. And here, like I said, I am also curious of anything that's in, not just mono white. Dryad Militant, I remember that at the time. Blue. Of course, we've got some of the hybrid stuff we'll probably see. Black. Yep. Molting Harpy. Actually, I'm going to try something else in a moment. Let's make a mental note to myself. Okay. Yep. love here all the cards that just come to the fore, or some of these. That looks suspiciously like it's been colour shifted in some way. But what I was interested in is if we go, if we've got a 2/1 flyer that costs 1, okay, so what, if anything, is the downside here? So what have they done there? To try and like dial it back a bit, or put in an additional constraint. And you can see various ways that's been implemented. Cool. Okay, moving on. Serra Angel, a classic. Ooh, it was part of those. These I've mentioned before. That period where there were no core sets, but there was this weird subset which was only available through supplemental product, and a number of them had cycles in them of like old school Magic cards. So French Vanilla, Evasion, Law, colour shifted. Oh, Golgari Death Swarm. Okay, yeah. 3 black green, flying vigilance 4/4. Referenced. Sierra Sphinx 3 and 2 blue for 4/4 with flying and vigilance. Okay, another reference one. Worse than Herald of the Host. What did that do? So that's 3 and 2 white with flying and vigilance, and it has Myriad. It's 4/4. Whenever this creature attacks for each opponent other than the defending player, you may create a token that's a copy of the creature that's tapped and attacking player, or a planeswalker they control. Exile the token at the end of combat. Wow. And better than Starlit Angel. 3 and 2 white for a 3/4 with flying, but no vigilance. I come in here, use this as a jump off point. You can see, if you go through Magic's history, it's been reprinted in a few sets, turns up in Commander now and again, core sets, 10th edition, which is where I remember it from. Although you can see here there's a bit of a gap. What's this? 7th. What is this? Oh, oversized 90s promos. Wow. Oh, of course, the oversized cards, yeah. So, 4th edition. And then 7th. Okay, so yeah. And of course you have to remember that core sets came out, every 2 years? So that's a bit, gap's going to be bigger than it seems if you're just used to seeing a core set come out every year. Now the other thing that again I was curious about is this whole thing of flying vigilance creatures. So you have evasion and also vigilance. which to me seems a pretty potent combination. That's Archangel. Now, of course, here I'm looking at any casting cost and any power toughness. But again, you're probably going to get a pretty good idea as we go through the different colours. So a lot of it in white and in combination with other colours. Blue, yeah, not so much. And looks like a lot of it is again in combination with other stuff. Black 21 again. Yep. Not too many mono-coloured ones. Red. Yep, similar sort of thing. And then green. What do we expect to see here? I don't know if there's anything. Interesting. So what I think I'll do, let me do a second pass through that because that's piqued my interest now. If I just say colour identity is 1. So 94 mono white cards. In blue we see 6. In black just 3. And again they could have been reprinted various times in Magic's history. Red there are none. And green. Oh, I forgot to say creature, didn't I? So some of those could have been things that grant abilities. Let's just try that. So we'll just go back in reverse here. So that'll still be nothing. Still 3. Because there could be like auras, I suspect. Maybe I got in first pass. 76. Which I think is a lot lower because there are quite a number of like other like enchantments that do stuff as well. Yep. Okay. White Knight. Right. Rhyming name. Obviously a mirror of Black Knight. Similar to Knight of Glory. Pro Black 2/1 has Exalted on it. So that's where, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, the creature gets +1/+1. Silver Knight. 2 for a 2/2 first strike protection from red. And Shrine Keeper, which it is better than because that's just a 2/2 for 2. So if we look at the French vanilla bears, CMC of 2 power. I probably could just use the word bear. Power of power. Has a power of power. Toughness of 2. It's doggo. So yeah, various lifelink things going on here. I'm going to go through the colours again to just see what takes it beyond just being a vanilla creature and what adds the Frenchness. So in white, what are we seeing? Well, we're seeing lifelink, vigilance, flanking, protection, which is what we're seeing. on that particular card. Did I? Let me just do it by release date. It might be a bit easier actually. There we go. Yeah. So protection, first strike, vigilance, first protection. Of course, some of these in combination with another colour. Our Spectral Rider has Intimidate on it. Interesting. Some lifelink stuff. Some flying as well. 2 for 2 with flying. It's always interesting. Got some hybrid stuff going on there. So if we move into blue, what do we see? So protection, flying. So yeah, mainly protection and flying. There's one here with haste, but that's because it's got red on it as well. And you can see most of these, well, actually bar one, it's in combination with another colour. If we move into black, we know it's a mirror of that. And there's probably a few other, you know, Black Knights with slightly different abilities on them. But it's definitely seeing so far. So red we have 12. And of course you've got Blood Knight as well. Yeah. Again, you know, 1, 2, I think I count 3 mono red ones there. It's interesting, these ones as well. This would be the same block, wouldn't it? So what do we got? Shards of Alara. That will be Conflux, and this would be Alara Reborn. And in this set as well, got the Yavimaya Barbarian and the Shivan Zombie. I wasn't really looking out for that, but yeah, we can see. Is it quite possible this might be part of the cycle? There's quite a, you know, a number of mono green ones, but if I just loop back again to white, you can definitely say that, you know, 2 2s for 2 that are French vanilla is definitely quite a big white thing, even when you consider, you know, or take out the cards which aren't combinations with other colours. See, now I'm curious, was this here? Yeah. There we go. At some point we'll be talking about invasion era standards, so I'm looking forward to some of the cards here in invasion. Lodestone Bauble. Wow. Interesting card. Cares about basic lands, restock land, delayed cantrip. Yeah, so cantrip, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but if I haven't, draw a card next turn. But over the course of Magic's history, that business of where, you know, a card had like draw a card stapled to it, in addition to some other ability, has sort of shifted in that a lot of cards you might see have that replacement effect, I think it's called, actually on the same turn the card comes into play. But for this one, cantrip, you know, it's drawing a card the next turn. And if I'm right, isn't that originally from D&D, I think? Something like that. So yeah, it comes up. But I think, and this might be a case of me again talking before I check, isn't, and it might be wrong. Isn't this more of a thing that tended to happen on older cards and we don't see it quite so much now? Judging by the artwork, it certainly looks like that, doesn't it? Because I mostly see like old bordered stuff. Yeah. Is there anything else I really want to add to this? Cares about basic lands, So again, it's sort of double utility thing here. You could use this to, imagine a situation where, okay, you can use it on yourself, but that does mean that, and you control actually. This is what I've forgotten about. It shows you read the card. Put up to 4 target basic lands from any player's graveyard on top of his or her library in any order. So you're taking them out of the graveyard, so it has to be in that situation. So obviously you're at the mercy of how many cards they actually have in the graveyard. It says from any player's graveyard, so you could do it obviously on yourself to restock land, but if a player has enough land in their graveyard and you think it's going to be to your advantage to sort of just have them drawing lands to be mana flooded for several turns, then you could use it in that way. Not sure at the time how much it was used in that way, because there's this interesting flexibility where you can put up to 4 target lands, so that gives a bit of control if you're using it on yourself in terms of I just want say the next draw or more to have lands. So the player draws a card at the beginning of the next turn's end step. Restock land. Okay. According to the tags, not something we see that much. What was the other thing it mentioned? Oh, just cares about basic land. I mean, getting back, as I said, I sort of misread this or didn't bother to read it because, there's also cards which will get basic lands from the deck, the library. This is interesting because just generally, if you get, say, Oracle basic, Oracle land, and then graveyard, let's see how we do with this. I'm just going to refine this as I go along. I'm just interested in the different guises that this takes in terms of how stuff like this appears in Magic. At this point I'm not going to restrict it to just artifacts. You've got Harvest Worm, Lobotomy, Hermit Druid. You can see they all do slightly different things. So this one here returns any basic card from your graveyard to your hand. This one, look at the top. So energies in here, other than a basic land. So all copies. Okay, so that's just got land in there. It's not relevant to what we're looking for. I don't know if it makes any difference if we put in Mickelson, Wellspring. Myco. It is interesting though with these sort of cards, like, you know, thinking about where you've got something you can choose how much of, instances where you can use that in, you know, a way to improve a position, or a way to actually make things worse for a player. I see, that looks like quite a good, like, diplomatic card, because it's just sort of just sitting there, isn't it? It's an artifact, so you can choose to tap it, and that could be used to help someone out if they're mana screwed, or you could deliberately mana flood somebody. Now you do get to draw a card as well, as you have to bear that at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, in addition to any other draw. So that would, you have to bear that in mind as to how much, if you were trying to flood someone, again, in order to do that, you'd need to have, you know, 2 or more, and they'd have to be in the graveyard. Oh, Zuran Orb, yeah. This has come up in numerous decks so far. Do you remember this? And DH from last week. Assuming that's short for unset EDH. Every thingamajig. It's referenced by. But yeah, I've covered that quite a bit in the previous episode, so I don't think I'm going to go through that. Same with land tax. But I always just check to see if there's anything interesting being added to the tags. So yeah, catch up, tutor to hand, tutor basic land. These equalisation cards are really interesting, but they have cropped up in a lot of tournament decks in this period. Same with Disenchant, and you know, you've got stuff like, so you get stuff in green and white that do these sort of things. You have Naturalize, which is the colour shifted one, and then you've got things like Abolish and you know, where it's stapled to something like Devout Witness. What's that? Oh, the one from Tempest where the storyline's in the card. Okay. And there was something I may have mentioned in a previous episode, though I don't know if it was about this. There was a period in Magic, and I'm not sure how much we see it now, where you had like a cycle. This isn't, I don't think this is part of a cycle, but it made me think of like things like the boons. So like a cycle of spells in certain sets, and they would sometimes crop up on a cycle of, say, creatures where their additional ability was the original cycle of spells. Those sort of things. So I'm always on the lookout for, you know, well-known spells in Magic that crop up on creatures, and it's interesting because you get things like, you know, we probably are familiar in EDH where, you know, you get this sort of thing where it's attached to a fairly substantial creature. I think you know the sort of creatures I mean. And so they come into play, they have an ETB, it deals with something, and then but you get the creature at the end of it. Or things like, you know, the evoke creatures where they come into play, and you've got a choice whether you want both the creature and the spell, or whether you just want the spell. But let's just quickly look at Devout Witness. Yeah, so interesting how the destroy target artifact, not only we've got casting not casting cost, the activation cost, but an additional cost here of discarding a card. So yeah, repeatable removal is the thing I was also trying to think of. And of course that can be massively disruptive if you've got cards that can just keep removing stuff. So you might find that often they're heavily costed, or they have some, and in cahoots with, in combination with that, they have some major downside. Also, they might be in sets where there was a particularly large amount of a certain type of card, and therefore they may seem quite powerful. And then when you consider what was in the set, like, you've got a set here which there's a lot of artifacts in. So destroy target artifact if it's converting mana cost equal to the mana in your mana pool. So there is an additional condition there for that to be able to go off. But of course that's really useful in a set where there was a lot of artifacts. And in other sets where it could cause a serious problem, there's something in the cost that would make it come out maybe later game. What you don't want is obviously a fairly cheap creature which has some like repeatable removal on it. If they're going to do that, then there's something else there. Is this Urza? I bet it is. That's the other thing. I always think of, that rule applies except in Urza's block where things were seriously overpowered. So 2 in a red, 1/3, 1 in a red, destroy target artifact, and it deals damage to the artifact's controller equal to the artifact's total casting cost. I think I suppose like Royal Assassin, but the creature has to be tapped for that to do. So repeatable removal, interesting thing to look at, and how its potential powerfulness is balanced. Reinforcements. Put up to 3 target creature cards from the graveyard on top of your library. Again, you're stacking the top of your library, but this you can only target yourself. Instant speed, a couple of different pieces of artwork. It was in the Cold Snap theme deck as well. Recursion creature, restock creature, of which I suspect. Alright, now a few, 33. Bone Harvest, okay. Oh yeah, Volrath Stronghold. There's his legacy. 1 of the green, shuffle all creature cards from a target player's graveyard into that player's graveyard. And cycling on it as well. Many lands that did that. Not a lot. what's Volrat Stronghold printed? Okay. Right. Reprisal. Oh yeah, Smite the Monstrous, that's what I was thinking of. So look at the difference there. So this one's 1 and a white, very target creature with power 4 or greater. Smite the Monstrous is 3 and a white to do the same thing at instant speed. Legion's Judgment is 2 and a white to do the same thing at sorcery speed. Better than Legion's Judgment. Better than Smite the Monstrous, yeah. Removal creature destroy. And yeah, quite a number of those. In terms of things that care about power, I mean, just trying to think the best way to word this. So let's do instance only. It should narrow things down quite a bit. And target creature. It's power 3, power 2. Power 4. Oops. There we go. Humble the Brute. If we go to 3, we get that. If we go to 2, we get that. And if we go to 1, we get those. Okay. Oh, okay, it's got scribe on it. So not such a good way of doing it. I suppose what I would want to do is something like this, maybe. Would be much more appropriate. I don't know if anything ever references power 5. No. So 4, 10 cards, 3, 4 cards, and that could be greater or less, of course. 2, and then 1. Nothing references power 1 as far as I know. Sleight of Mind. An interrupt. This whole business of text changing in Magic. And I did go through these last week, I think. Interesting. If you remember, there was ones that change the they would change like different aspects of them. One colour word or basic land type with another, both or either, those sort of things. There's also, which are slightly different. There's other things like redirection spells, but here specifically, didn't we have something like Dream Thrush come up in a different context where it was changing the land type, I think, for the other card we features. Swords to Plowshares. Lay down arms. Where's that from? Sorcery, exile target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of planes you control. Okay. It's controlled against. Stapled to Solitude on an ETB. 3 and 2 white. Yeah. There's a number of removal creature exile type spells in white only. Get these, and you can see there's a number of various conditions attached to that, or things that you get as well. These always were interesting. Path to Exile and Journey to Nowhere. And then, you know, you're probably familiar with cards that have, they come into play, they exile something, and then when they leave play, it comes back, like Fiend Hunter. It's actually, yeah, on a creature, it's quite an interesting ability, actually. You're a Banisher Priest. Armageddon, destroy all lands. Sweeper land destruction. Stapled to Desolation Angel. Destroy all lands you control. Okay. And other things like Obliterate, which can't be countered, and also does artifacts and creatures as well. Chuckle Hoops we've seen. Balance, yeah. Had a look at this in a previous episode. Anything interesting here? I don't think so. Yeah, Mages of the Balance. So I've been through this quite a few times now. Arenson's Aura. Alliteration. Tarifi's Care. Sacrifice enchantment to destroy an enchantment. Counter target enchantment spell. Counter spell enchantment. Interesting. So reusable counter spells that are enchantments. 10 cards. Oh yeah, Life Force, of course. that's not, that's triggered, isn't it? So what have we got on artifacts, if anything? And I've got to try creatures. I end up just going through the permanents here. Yeah, it's not a legend. Repeatable counter spell. Of course, there's a number of different counter spells here, not just enchantments. I'm assuming we don't see it on a, not on a land. Black Vise, well, that was a feature of a deck last week, and similar to Fevered Visions, similar to Ebony Owl Netsuki. What is foe targeting? Not sure. This is expensive, isn't it? Yeah, 432. During the new upkeep, the creature in play with the lowest power is destroyed and cannot be regenerated. If there is a tie, you choose which to destroy. Drop of money must be discarded if there are no creatures in play. Black Vise, we've got the rack. Good old Pithing Needle. Name a card. And I did a episode of, was it Commander Fodder way back, I think, on that. At the beginning of upkeep, destroy the creature with the least power. It cannot be regenerated. If two or more creatures are tied for the least power, you choose one of them. When there are no creatures in play, sacrifice 4 nodes. Yeah, that's probably old. Well, not old for the channel, but what, a couple of years old now probably, that video. So yeah, all of these are cards that basically just punish you in some way. If an opponent, but it doesn't mention target player. It says the beginning of the chosen player's upkeep. So I'm assuming all of these target a player without mentioning target. Yeah. Divine Offering, destroy target artifact, gain life. Yeah. Yeah, artifact destruction, decommission. So, yeah. And a Mirror of Serene Offering, which does enchantments. Energy Storm. Cumulative upkeep. Damage prevention, hate flying, hate sorcery, lockdown creature, drawback, hate instant, lockdown, and upkeep cost. So upkeep cost 211 cards. If we look at those, we might well see an interesting distribution that might be worth talking about. We'll see, of course. So as we go through, let's just see when we move from old borders to new borders, or where that might happen. Did I make a silly mistake here? No, release date ascending. Okay, wow. It just shows you how much it went on earlier in Magic's history. So still old bordered cards. Here's the new stuff. So Frost Elemental from original Mirrodin. We've got it in Champions. Yeah, no surprise to see it in here, because this is the... Let's pretend there was a set that we lost. It's Cold Snap. And so they, brought in the cumulative upkeep from the original Ice Age block to keep it thematically on target. And you can see there's quite a number of those. Time Spiral, no surprise there. One in the time shifted cards. But it's sort of manifesting itself in slightly different ways here. It doesn't necessarily mention cumulative upkeep, but there is a cost here that some of these you can see are scalable based on certain things. Get Roll Monster. So some things you just need to sack to keep it in play. Exile. Well, various. So Chastise, just your target artifact attacking creature. You gain life equals value from the game. We looked at many of those earlier because it was similar to another card. So Unmake is in there. Serrated Arrows obviously cropped up a lot at a particular Pro Tour by the look of things. Weapon Rack. Interesting. Unique counters, yeah, I spoke about that before. Gives counters. So minus counters. Something that was, a thing when we've had things like Infect come up in a set. But it is, dotted throughout Magic's history. It was also part of the Wither, keyword. And was, all over those sets around that time that featured it. This is an interesting one, Skeleton Ship. And you got things like Incremental Blight as well. And we've got it back in, of course, Mirrodin block as well, as a result of Infect. to date. Final page. There was the here in this set, Amonkhet. And didn't they specifically have little tokens, I think? Yeah, I'm trying to do this from memory. I remember the brick tokens, but yeah, didn't they have like -1/-1 counter tokens as well? I think they were like those punch out cards, but not 100% sure on that. But you can see there's quite a few in there. And Spirit Link, gain 1 life for every 1 damage target creature deals. You may gain more life than the toughness or the total life of the creature or player damaged by the creature. So it's an aura. Although back then it just said enchant creature. Referenced by lifelink. So it's what they consider to be old lifelink. Before lifelink was keyworded in Magic 2010, it was a triggered ability. And yeah, lifelink can be super annoying to play against when used effectively. There you go, you got Vampiric Link and Spirit Link. And of course these things like Armadillo Cloak, you get +2/+2 trample and lifelink. Now in terms of cards that specifically mention lifelink, and if we go through the various colours again, so there's one, this is across, some of these might double count obviously. 36 in blue, a lot in black, which doesn't surprise me. Red, I'm assuming a lot of this is a result of these being in other colours as well. I'll probably do a second pass through in a moment actually, because to do some green ones. So let's just do that with the ID set to 1 and then just go backwards. So green 5, so 5 mono green things with a lifelink on it. Let's just deal, I think I'm going to say I'm not, now maybe I will leave it in there. This one's a little bit odd. Yeah, let's just go back. I won't worry about the creature type, I don't think. None in red. Surprise, surprise. Black. Yep. A lot. Blue. 1. But as long as you control the planes. And then white. A whole load as well. Including one called Lifelink. So there we have it. Hopefully you enjoyed that. It was interesting to look at a white Weenie deck from '96, albeit one where there was a bit of a mess up on the deck listing. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next episode.